Hi everybody. So last week, this lesson is called Introduction to Factoring, and this is kind of your general notes, and then we'll have some examples to follow. This is due Wednesday, May 13th. Last week we talked about multiplying. This week we're going to go the opposite way. We're going to divide, or what we're going to hear over and over, we're going to factor. We are finding the factors, or the things that divide into other numbers or terms. Again, last week we did this and we multiplied through. So we did I talked about the FOIL method or the generic rectangle method. So FOIL just takes this x to the two terms over here. X times x is x squared. The outside term, which just takes x to the outer term here, x times 7 is a positive 7x. Then we take the 3 to both terms, so we have 3 times an x, that's a positive 3x. And our last terms, the 3, or the second term, times this other last or second term in this parenthesis, 3 times 7 is a positive 21. And then we have these middle terms that we can combine. We're combining like terms, something we've done for a long time in this class. So the x squared drops down, 7x and 3 more x's are 10x's plus 21, our constant term. This week, we are given x squared plus 10x plus 21. We will find the factors. So that's one of the factors, because this actually can divide into this quadratic up here. And the other factor is x plus 7. So we're doing the reverse. We're going to review something that I hope we've seen before. It's called the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor is the biggest number, or for our algebra needs, we're going to call them terms, that divides into two other numbers or terms. So if we're just talking numbers, or if we're just talking what I hope you've seen before, is if we are given 12 and 32, find the greatest common factor, or the GCF. So what we do is we start with 12 and we find all the factors in 12. And so this is when your multiplication facts really help you. So if you have a calculator, you can sit, and I would say, you start with your small numbers. 12 divided by 1 is 12, 1 in itself. So we have 1 and 12. Well, I think 12 divided by 2, so 2 times 6 is 12. And so maybe I'm not sure one more. So I sit here with my calculator, and what about 12 divided by, so I've done 1 and 2, let's do 3. So 4 is another one. 3 times 4 is 12. So those factors are 3 and 4. And that's all the factors. And I would say for our purposes, we might just go up to, 10. So I see a 1, a 2, a 3. What about 12 divided by 5? No, that's not a nice number. They have to be all whole numbers. What about 12 divided by 7? No, ugly. 12 divided by 8. Nope, fraction. 12 divided by 9. Nope. So these are them. Let's do 32. So again, you can always do 1 and 32. 2 works with 16. 2 times 16 is 32. 3 doesn't go in, but 4 does. 4 and 8. Okay, 5 doesn't, because 5 needs to end in 5 or 0. 6 doesn't. We could check. What's 32 divided by 6? So if we're not good with multiplication facts, we either need kind of a numbers chart with multiplication, or we need to use our calculators. So we look, and what's the greatest common factor? Well, the biggest one up here is 12, but it's not down here. Our next greatest is 6, but it's not down here. Our next greatest number is 4, and 4 is right here. So the greatest common, so the GCF of 12 and 32 is 4. Okay, so similarly, if we're given terms, so they're not just numbers, so I already know with this number and this number, the biggest thing that divides into both of them, or their greatest common factor, is 4. And then it's just whatever, it's whatever terms, or sorry, it's whatever letters and exponents are the biggest. So this one over here just has an X, and this has actually 2 X's right here, so an X works. So this is the greatest common factor of these 2 terms up here. So for Wednesday's assignment, the one exercise that you need to do is called GCF Factoring Introduction. And so here's some examples that you'll see. Elliot was trying to factor 6x squared subtract 18. He found that the greatest common factor of those terms was 6. So that means 6 is the biggest term that divides into them, and made this model. What is the width? So what they're asking for, and last week we went on top, but since this word is here, I'm going to go down below. So they're really asking for, if we're multiplying, what's left? So we're going backwards. We're actually dividing. Or we're playing this guessing game of 6 times what gives you x squared. Well, the 6 is already there, so we just are missing an x squared. What about this one? Well, it's just going to be a number, so 6 times what gives you 18? And if you don't know, we always can work backwards and divide. So what's negative 18 divided by 6? Negative 3. So into this box goes x squared minus 3. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is always one where I feel like I want to check, where I second guess myself. So you can check by just saying the height times what we just found. And so we're kind of doing what we did last week to find if this works over here or if we're given. So I'm just using the distributive property. 6 times x squared is 6x squared. And then 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. So I double check, and this matches this. So I know I'm good. So here's my answer. So I found my answer, and then I double checked over here. Check mark. What else do I do? Oh yeah, the happy face. So happy. All right, another one of these. If you think you've got it, you can press pause and try it yourself. Where's my favorite marker? There it is. Okay, so I'm just gonna take it one at a time because it's nice, and I definitely need some scratch paper for this. So 4 times what gives you 4x squared? Well, I've already got the 4, so I could have a 1 down here, but 1 is understood. But I'm just kind of missing the x squared. Okay, let's alternate. So 4 times what gives you 20x? Well, 4 times what gives you 20? That would be a 5. 4 times 5 is 20, and it's still missing an x. This is just going to be a number, and if I'm scared, I'm just going to say what's negative 16 divided by the 1 out front, and that's a negative 4. So the answer that goes into this space is x squared, and there's nothing here because positivity is understood, minus 4. So that's what you would type in. And you can check it just like you would do here. So why don't I check really quick? So 4, or the height, times the width, x squared plus 5x, take away 4. So I think that's the answer. Am I gonna get what I saw inside? 4x squared. 4 times 5x is a positive 20x. 4 times a negative 4 is negative 16. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh-wee. Boom, boom, boom. So happy. The other kind of example you're gonna see kind of looks like this, and this is where it tricked me. So I cut off a bunch of the words, but what it definitely says is greatest common factor. So the first thing I have to look for is what's the biggest thing that's divisible by all of these. Because I think if we try this 3 and multiply it through, this one down here is going to give you the answer. Oh, but actually, that's funny. I think that is the answer. So if we think about these up front, so this right here, and so I would need scratch paper, is 6x to the power of 3, because that's an x and 2 more x's. So that one doesn't work because that's only 6x squared. This one I like. So far, so good. Oops. 6 times a negative 3 is negative 18x. That's a negative 3x. No, thank you. Okay. Let's do this one. Oh, this is the same as the first one. 3 times 2 is 6, but an x times x squared is x to the third. So it's got to be this one. Okay. I think the ones with the x's are the ones that were hard because these both have an x. So if I have to pull out an x. So I definitely have to pull out an x. And then what's the biggest thing that these go into? Well, 10. The factors of 10 are 10 and 1 and 2 and 5. And the biggest factor is 10. Well, 10 goes into 55 times. So 10x is that GCF that they kind of talk about here that they're requiring. So I have to see which ones are 10x. So it's these two. So again, if I look here, that's going to give me this answer, but it's not, but this x here is not the greatest common factor, so they don't want you to do this one. So here is 10x squared, and then 10x times 5 is a positive 50x. So I think it's this one, but I'm just going to make sure. Right away, we've got 10x cubed. This is an x, this is 2 more, so there's 3. No, thank you. Okay, you should be able to do the exercise called GCF Factoring Introduction due Wednesday.